Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing? Good, awake, we're here. We got donuts, we got coffee, tea, and I have $1 million idea for someone that I'm just gonna give away. And I don't know if this has been done yet, but squeezable butter, like butter out of a toothpaste thing, if that's not a thing, somebody do that. Because I'm sick and tired of like cutting my butter. That's just like one extra step I don't need. So if you want to make millions of dollars, there you go. That's your $1 million idea. Squeezable butter. That sounds a little weird, but anyway. Hey, welcome to Branches this morning. My name is Joshua. I'm the youth and worship pastor here at Branches, and I'm excited you're here. We do have a couple things going on. First and foremost, anybody hungry this morning? Kind of like, yeah, you could use some food. Well, I have a special treat for you. Right after service today, we're doing a church barbecue right outside. We got a lot of good food, burnt ends and all sorts of barbecue things like that. It's going to be a great time. So right after service, if you want to just pick up your chair, don't take it home with you, but you can take it outside, and we're all just going to sit together, hang out, have a good time, and eat some food together. Another thing is next Sunday, the 24th, we're doing a baptism service. So if you're here this morning and you profess Jesus as your Lord and Savior and you've been following after him, but you have yet to get baptized, this is a great next step for you. It's a public declaration saying the old is gone, the new has come, and I'm making that decision publicly to just follow the Lord. Another thing coming up at the end of this month, we have our all-church picnic, and that is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you're still wanting to go and you haven't gone yet, we have a couple spots, I think 2 or 3 spots left. You can go ahead and find Gina. She's going to be around here somewhere. She can get you squared up. You can even find myself after service, or Mike. We'll point you in the right direction. But that Saturday, everybody say Saturday. That Saturday, we're having kind of a big church picnic with the rest of everybody up there at Hudson Parcher Park, right up at the top of Rainier. And it's from 10 to 5. There's going to be a cornhole tournament, speed volleyball, hot dogs, all sorts of really fun things. But that next Sunday, the 31st, there is no in-person service, okay? I just cannot stress that enough. If you show up, the doors will be locked, the lights will be off. You think like you missed the rapture or something. There is no in-person service that week. There will be an online service, so go ahead and tune in branches.tv. We'll be doing a live service or an online service there. But everybody, you want to stand up? We're going to sing some songs this morning. You know, when you really think about it, waking up early in the morning to sing songs sounds kind of crazy, mainly because ain't nobody's voice like awake at 8 o'clock in the morning, or what time is it? 9, 10? Well, no excuse this point, right? Come on, we're going to sing out, sing loud. We got words on the screen for you. I just want to encourage you to sing and deafen your neighbor this morning, amen? Grace, what have you done? Murdered for me on that cross, accused in absence of wrong, my sin washed away in your blood, too much to make sense of it all. I know that your love breaks my fall, scandal of grace. You died in my place, so my soul will live. Oh, come on, sing it out. Oh, to be like you, to give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one besides you. Forever the hope in my heart. Death, where is your to know you. Jesus, there's no one besides you. Forever the hope in my heart. And oh, to be like you, to give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one besides you. Forever the hope in my heart. There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, was standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding of how I am set free, there is a cross that bears the burden of where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world, 'cause I know, yes I know, and I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, is holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding what power set me free? There is a grave that holds nobody. Now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, oh, 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 'cause I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to Him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between within. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls give in. 'Cause nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. I want to sing His name this morning. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Come on, Sando. And I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire. 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Hey, can we pray this morning? Can we bow our heads and close our eyes? Lord, I just thank you so much for your goodness. God, that even at times we may not feel it. God, at times we may look around in our lives and not see it. But God, I thank you that you're still on our side. God, that you are still fighting for us. God, I thank that even though we may feel we are out on tumultuous waters and the waves are crashing all around us and stress is high and anxiety is high and depression is high. But God, I thank you that you are walking on the water with us. God, I thank you that your word says in Deuteronomy that you'll never leave us nor forsake us. And so, Lord, this morning, God, I just ask that you would forgive us of our feelings. Lord, that we may not feel you. God, that we may feel alone. God, that we may feel overwhelmed in all the things that are going on. God, forgive us when we don't see you. God, forgive us when we don't hear you or when we don't look for you. Lord, I pray this morning, God, that we would have a turning point in our lives. Lord, that we would look to you, God, in everything. God, that in our stress we would look to you. God, that in our hurt we would turn to you. God, that in our fear we would go to you. Lord, I pray this morning that as we continue to worship and we sing this last song, Lord, I pray that we would just glorify you through the pain. God, that we would worship you through the hurt and everything. God, for you are worthy of our praise. In Jesus' name. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. And let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. And you are good. You're good. Oh, yes, you are good. You're good. Oh, and you are good. You're good. Oh, yes, you are good. You're good. Oh, let the King of my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails. Never gonna so good. Oh.
Things work, and as you can tell, I'm unqualified. No, good morning. My name is Mike. I'm one of the staff here at Branches, and it's just a pleasure to have you here joining us in the house or your house at Line. But just a reminder, as we like to say here at Branches, you can get up at any point during the service, especially while I'm talking, refresh yourself, grab something out of your fridge. I promise I won't steal anything from you. But we're just glad you're here because at Branches we're building a church, which is just a community, a set of people who are united in a common purpose to be together. And in particular, we're to be together in following Christ. And we just want to invite you into this space and welcome to the family. So welcome. If you're here and it's your first time, we consider you a friend. And so we built this place for you. And so welcome home is hopefully what we're saying here. But welcome to Branches. And we are in the second to last week of our series, Let's Talk. And this series we've been going on for a little while, and the whole purpose of the series is just to explore different times where God has communicated, has had dialogue, conversation with his creation. So God talking to Moses through a burning bush, or Jesus talking to a woman by the well, it doesn't matter. We've been covering all these different dialogue spaces in an effort to discover some things about Jesus, about God, about the Father, about his character, about the things that he values, the things he doesn't value, the things he likes, doesn't like. It turns out he likes roses, long walks on the beach, all those kinds of things, along with everything else he created, because he made everything we see around us. And more so to discover our place in the heavens, our place and our value in his mind, in his eyes. And so for those of you, just to peel back some of, to give away the end of the story, you're a valuable child of God, and he gave everything he could for you. So he paid for you. And so he loves you, and just so you know, that's what it is. So we're going to continue on this series today. We're going to kind of jump in pretty heavy because it's a lot of stuff to cover. And I want to make sure we get through all of it without leaving anything kind of out or confused. And so I want to start off kind of exploring this morning. What we're going to be exploring is this question, this notion of anybody in here, and feel free to raise your hand. Anybody in here ever been disappointed by God? Anybody? It's not sacrilegious to raise your hands, I promise. Nobody is taking attendance on that. I'm just making sure I catch all the names of the people who raise their hands. It's fine. Sandy, you writing that down for me? We'll talk to them later. No, being disappointed by God, or maybe you've been in a spot in your life and you kind of wondered, like, where are you? What are you doing? Why is it so quiet around here? Like, why is this happening to me? Right? Just all the notion of questions where we're really just questioning God's goodness. We're questioning kind of his presence. We're questioning his value that he says is on us, and yet suddenly, where are you? Right? I'm disappointed by God. I'm disappointed by God's response. And I think some of us, we even run into a spot where we're thinking we're like in Top Gun, right? And we're sitting here, we're like, man, I do life like ice, no mistakes, right? I've lived a clean life. I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs, whatever it is. And here I am, still bad stuff is happening to me. And we sit in that spot, and we have this tension where we are trying to interact with God, or we're trying to at least come to an understanding with God. And maybe, if you're in here and you don't believe in God, you're thinking, yeah, I'm disappointed by God because he's not there, right? So that's totally, like, we all sit in this space sometimes. And I want you to have the freedom to experience that emotion, the freedom to feel that feeling, but let's evaluate what's actually going on. And so we're going to look at a story today. It takes place several thousand years ago. So we're going to do a little bit of a history lesson. But before we get to that, I kind of want to do some backstory. So I need to introduce you to a guy. And it's a guy I screw the name up of all the time. His name is Elijah, with a J. And he has a disciple that comes later named Elisha. And the way I like to think of that is J comes before S in the alphabet. So Elijah came before Elisha. But I'm going to screw this up today a lot. So just, laugh at me. It helps me remember. better. But this is a story kind of two mountains, right? This is the tale of two mountains. It's a tale of two cities, all that, Anyway, all you literary nerds are loving me right now. But a tale of two mountains, and where we encounter Elijah, who's like the prophet's prophet. So if we're looking at the Jewish tradition, so the Hebrew nation, they've been following God since the beginning. It's what makes them Israelites. It's what makes them Jewish. And so they've got these set of prophets. And these prophets came around, and they were the mouthpiece of God. They were doing, or they were stating the will of God upon the people. So that's how God spoke to the people, was through the prophets. And so Elijah is the end of or near the end of a long line of very powerful, very prominent, very successful, quote unquote, prophets for God. And Elijah is like the guy. So when you talk to like an Israelite, they're going to tell you like, yeah, Elijah, he's like the prophet's prophet. Like that's the guy. It's like Moses is the top, and then Elijah's right after him. And so actually, that's kind of amazing, right? If we're thinking about like, we're going to be talking about this guy, Elijah, who is the guy. Like he moved in so much power, did so many things. In fact, one of the most famous things he did was on the top of a mountain called Mount Carmel. Now, I'm gonna let you know, I did some research on this. I am extremely disappointed, probably with God on this. That is not made of caramel. Did you know that? It's just dirt. I was disappointed. I almost didn't preach this message, but it's fine. Mount Carmel, he's up there on Mount Carmel, and what Elijah has done, he's had this career he's been going through, challenging the nation of Israel. At this point, Israel is split from Judah and Israel, so there's two nations, and Israel has kind of been run by some real jokers, like just terrible kings. And the most recent king has come in, Ahab, and he's married a lady named Jezebel. And Jezebel, what her goal, she had an ulterior motive, getting married into the royal line of Israel. Her goal was to bring in the worship of Baal. Now, if you're not familiar with Baal, Baal is the god of fire, the god of hate and torment. He's the god of passion, but passion in a negative way. We're using that passion to subjugate people. And so Jezebel has this goal to bring Baal worship into Israel and to start to cast out the God of our fathers, the one true God, and cast him out of Israel and make it so that it's Baal worship only. And so she's brought in bunches of priests, and she's brought in a bunch of worshipers, and she's been tearing down temples and doing all these things to try and get Baal worship to be kind of the normal. Well, Elijah, he's God's mouthpiece, and he's sick of this, right? He is unhappy with this status quo. And so he decides he's going to lay down the gauntlet. He's going to throw down a challenge, right? And so he goes up on the Mount Carmel, and he says to the 850 gathered Baal worshipers and priests, he says, you know what? Let's just do an all-in thing right now, right? Like, it's table stakes. We're doing the whole thing. Like, I accidentally set my car keys on the table. That's in there, too. Like, here we go. We're going to put this all on the line. We're going to gather a bunch of sticks, and we're going to make this ginormous pyre, this ginormous kind of pillar of wood and things. And I'm going to let you go first, right? Like, I'm so confident. I'm going to let you go first, Baal worshipers. I want you to set this on fire by worshiping to Baal. Prove that Baal is real by worshiping to him. And I'll give you all day, right? So Elijah, you can just kind of picture, he just kind of leans back against the wall, and he's like, this ought to be good, right? And as they go all day, these Baal worshipers and priests, they're going around there chanting, they're dancing like, whoa, I don't know how they did it. But anyway, it looks funnier when I do it. But, they're like pouring their hearts out. They're cutting themselves because one of the things is a blood sacrifice for this. And so they're trying everything they can to invoke Baal to light this wood on fire, because they realize that if they can do this, they won the fight. Elijah's going to get out. He's going to get out of town, or they can kill him, or whatever. And so here they are. They're going all day, and finally Elijah's like, all right, I gave you your chance. It's my turn. And I'll raise the ante a little bit more. Bring in the water. And Elijah has the whole pile doused in water. Now it's soaking wet. And the whole goal is to light it on fire. Now, if I was somebody watching, and I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm Team Elijah, but why would you do that? Why would you handicap yourself? Because of his relationship and understanding of God, he had ultimate confidence in what was going to happen. And so Elijah, not taking all day, prays to the Lord God, come down, reveal your presence to us, show that you are the true and mighty one. And that pillar of fire consumes the entire pyre. Nothing left. I mean, that's like Elijah. That's the career topper right there, right? Like, he's had a whole career. He's like, I've talked to kings. I've cast out people. I've healed the sick. I've even raised a child from the dead. And now, I have now just proven to the nation of Israel at large that God is not only real, but that he is there and in presence and in power. And so now he has all the 850 gathered worshipers there for Baal. He has them slaughtered. He has them murdered because they are literally trying to destroy the nation at large. And so he has them put to the death to the side. And you can almost picture for Elijah at this point, he's like, all right, it's my credits moment, right? We can kind of picture the music is like swollen and like we had the big crescendo. And now Tom Cruise is going to walk off in the sunset or something. And it's like, roll the credits, and there it is. And while he's like trying to find the deck for the credits, or he's like, it's in here somewhere, a messenger shows up from Jezebel. She's unhappy, understandably unhappy, because he just murdered all of her priests and worshipers. And so she vows to use every resource at her command. And remember, she's the queen. She has a lot to kill Elijah. She's going to murderize him. Like, that's it. It's done. And so Elijah, doing what any logical person would do, having just seen the power of God committed right in front of him, he runs for the hills. No, really, he does. That's what he does. He runs away. You guys don't believe me. No, he really runs away. In fact, he runs for 40 days into the wilderness. He runs away. He is terrified. There's a part of him in him that he's thinking like, I was on the mountaintop, Mount Carmel, and it was sweet. And here we go. Now I'm now in the wilderness, and I'm wandering away, and I'm destitute, and everything is lost, and I am in trouble. God, where are you? It was going so well. And he wanders for 40 days, and he winds up at a mountain, kind of a famous mountain. And this theme of 40, it's interesting because, and this is kind of a free takeaway for you, this theme of 40 happens over and over again. I'm not a big numerology person, so don't put too much weight in numbers. It's God's authority that we lean on. But he likes to use patterns because it helps us see things. And so as Elijah's wandering for 40 days, this feels a lot like as the nation of Israel had just come out of captivity and they wandered around for 40 years while he was doing a work in them, getting rid of the old generation, bringing in the new who is ready to accept the promise. In fact, before that, those same generation was in captivity for 40 decades, 400 years in Egypt. In fact, when he brought them out of captivity, Moses, who went up on a mountain called Mount Sinai, he was up there for 40 days receiving the law, the next iteration, the next work to be done in the nation of Israel. That was up there for 40 days. In fact, Jesus had even stepped upon being baptized into the next part of his journey on his faith and his ministry into the wilderness for 40 days. And so the free takeaway for you today is that even the great heroes, even the great faith giants that we think of, and like, oh man, those people had it all. They had figured everything out. They were walking with God. They were talking to him. Even they have 40-day moments in the wilderness full of loneliness, doubt, despair, fear, and drought. So you're in good company. If you're in a spot where you feel like, man, I'm in my 40 days, I'm going to be 40 this year. This is happening, right? I mean, it's real. You shouldn't have laughed at that. It's fine. This is a spot where Elijah finds himself. And he's wandering through the wilderness, and he's being provided for by angels on his way towards a mountain called Mount Horeb, because he's having a horrible time. I told Ryan I'd do it. I know. It turns out the Mount Horeb is another name for Mount Sinai, the same mountain that Moses found himself on, not only receiving the promise to go set the captives free, but then found himself back at to receive the promise of the law and God's presence in their lives. And so Elijah finds himself wandering back to the beginning, I think in hopes that he would be able to find sort of a rekindling of what he had just lost on the other mountaintop, on Mount Carmel, to be able to find like, man, I've lost touch with what was going on. I've done everything right, but I've lost it. And so I've got to go back to figure out how to get it. And so that's where we pick it up. He finds himself at the mountain, and it says this in 1 Kings 19, chapter 9, so you can read this on your phone Bible or the Sky Bible. There he came to a cave on the mountain, Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, where he spent the night. He finally arrives at the mountain. And upon arrival, he's asked this question. It says, but the Lord said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Why are you here? What's your purpose? Why have you come to this place? Elijah, who's not in the best spot, mentally, emotionally, whines. He says, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel, they've broken their covenant with you. And he continues, says, they tore down your altars and they killed every one of your prophets. I am the last one. And now they're trying to kill me too. Woe is me. The thing is, he's right. They had done all those things. They had torn down all those temples, all those altars. They had forsaken the covenant, the promise that God had made with the nation of Israel, and they had said, we're not having any of it. And now they were chasing after Elijah to have him killed. So God responds to this. He says, go out, go out and stand before me on the mountain. And as Elijah stood there, he's in the cave, right? The Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. So he's sitting here, he's in this cave, he's like, whoa, big wind going on. This feels a lot like Moses on the hill when he was receiving the law, and it covered in a cloud, and we heard thunderclaps and a storm going on up there. God was definitely in that space. There was a presence of God, and yet here is another wind blast on the same mountain, but God's not in that wind blast. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. You see, in those 40 days while Moses was up on the hill, up on this same mountain, probably not in the same cave, but on the same mountain, and the nation of Israel was down below, waiting below him, they started to have doubt and worry and fear because he wasn't coming back, and there was an earthquake that kind of reminded them that things were going on up top. Granted, they thought Moses was being killed by God, but here's an earthquake. That must surely be the presence of the Lord. But it continues. And it says, and after the earthquake, there was a fire because the Lord wasn't in the earthquake, but the Lord was not in the fire. The same thing. The entire hillside is surrounded by fire. I mean, some of us here have lived through wildfires just in Oregon or in southern Oregon and Washington. We have seen the devastation that fires like that can have. They are magnificent, not in a positive way, and terrible, and they definitely show power. And here is a fire raging around the mountain. In fact, God came to Moses in a burning bush. Fire is one of those things, right? Like God must be in that, but God was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. And actually, in kind of the Hebrew tradition, this notion of gentle whisper, this notion of still, small, silent voice, is that notion of silence. In all of the noise and all of the chaos that happened after it had passed by, the whisper you're hearing is your ears adjusting to. Road noise. No, quiet. The quiet. The nothing. The small, still whisper that's going on after all of those things, where we would normally, in fact, we had seen in history, we had seen God interact in those spaces, in the great blasts of wind, the storms, the mighty earthquake, and the fire. We had seen God do that thing. Elijah had grown up with the history of that, and he had even participated in some of that. Mount Carmel was a big fire. He has seen God interact in those spaces. And here he is. He's come back to where he knows God has been. On Mount Sinai, he knows God has been there. And God was not in any of those things. And then in the silence, in the small whisper after that, when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak to conceal his face so that he would not be blinded and then killed by God's glory and majesty. And he went out and stood at the entrance to the cave in God's presence. And a voice said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Same question. Suddenly we have a bit more context because we've got God's presence here. And it seems clear that that's what Elijah is seeking. It seems clear that at this point, Elijah is up on this hill literally to find God's presence, to kind of get back to or to reset or to get back to the high. He wants back on the mountaintop. He wants to get out of the valley. So what are you doing here, Elijah? And because he's a well-adjusted individual who has figured out how to, update his answer, he said the same thing again. He said, "I've zealously served the Lord God Almighty." He's not whining as much this time. This time he's just sort of stating, I've done these things. I've lived the right life. I've done what you've asked me to do. But the people of Israel, they have broken their promise with you. And they tore down your altars and your temples. And they've killed every one of your prophets except me. I'm the only one left. And that's not going to be for much longer. And it's in that broken space of understanding where he has been in his life, the understanding that he has been obedient. He has done what God has asked. He's not perfect by any means. He has made mistakes, but he is acknowledging and being acknowledged by God. Hey, I have done what you've asked me to do. And yet this bad thing is happening, not just to me, but to the nation of Israel. Those you had called me to protect, to lead, to serve, to teach, they're falling away. God, what are you doing? I thought the plan was to save everybody. And God's response in the verses after this is that he provides. He provides for Elijah each one of those things that he needs. Elijah's tired. He's been doing this almost his entire life, and he's been doing it almost entirely alone. And so God says, I'm going to have you pick your successor. His name is Elisha. I mess that up every time I practice, so I have to try. You're going to go find Elisha. You're going to anoint him as the next great prophet of Israel. And you're going to have him follow you around as a disciple until I eventually pull you up into heaven. In fact, Elijah is the only other person besides Jesus to be pulled directly from the earth into heaven without dying. Elijah is an amazing guy. And he's going to pick his successor. He's going to get an end to this work. He's going to find rest. God is going to provide him with rest. The next thing he's going to be given is hope. He's going to be given hope. You're not only going to go pick your successor, you're going to go pick the next king. And the next king, between him and Elisha, there's going to be no Baal worshiper that gets away. Not a single one. Not a single person in rebellion to God will get away between the two of them. That's a promise that God makes to Elijah. It happened. I tried. He gives hope to Elijah. Elijah had taken in the mission and the vision that God had put in his life, and then he was seeing that slip away, and God's like, no, I've got it. I've got a solution for it, and it's going to work. And finally, God gives him confirmation that he is not alone. He's interacting with Elijah in person right now, but he also tells Elijah there are 7,000 people. 7,000 people in the nation of Israel itself who never bent their knee to Baal. Not once. And out of them I will continue to raise up prophets who will guide and teach and show the nation of Israel who I am and how to interact with me. You're not alone, Elijah. You're not alone in here. In fact, if you look around you right now, you're surrounded by a community of people who may be feeling just like you and who are being lied to by the devil, being told that they're alone in their feelings of abandonment, they're alone in their feelings of doubt and drought and everything else, and you're sitting next to somebody who's feeling the exact same thing, and you're being told, nobody else is like me. Nobody else feels what I feel. Nobody else experiences what I experience. Everybody else's life is perfect. Grass is greener. That person's been walking with Jesus for 30 years. They don't experience doubt. Are you kidding me? We just figured out different ways to doubt. Our questions just seem to become more lofty. They're not better. They just couched in Christianese. We doubt. We have days where we ask the question, God, where are you? I'm disappointed in the response. I thought it would be this way. And what we miss in that space is that the Lord is here. We forget, and it makes perfect sense, but we forget that the Lord is here and here and here and here and everywhere because God is the omnis, and so he's omnipresent. He's in all places. He is literally here for you, seeing his will done. And that's the big part too, is that he is working. But, and this is the part Elijah missed, and this is the part that I have so much trouble with, and maybe you're in my same boat. He's working, but he never does the same work the same way twice. Jesus never healed the same person the same way. He healed blindness all the time, but he spit in the mud once, and I think he just told somebody you can see. And so there are a myriad of ways that God continues to work. And what Elijah did, the mistake and the reason that God asked him is like, what are you doing here, Elijah? Why did you come backwards? Why did you come back to something I had already done? We're done with that. We're done with the Sinai stuff. We're done with the Mount Horeb. Let's move forward. Let's move on. I've got 7,000 people ready to go. You're going to anoint a new king. I'm going to give you a break. You're going to have a new prophet. Here we go. We're working, and it's all new. Nothing you've seen before, and therefore nothing you expect. And yet Elijah was looking in a place where he expected to see God the same way as had happened before. And I think a lot of us, we find ourselves in that spot where we are expecting God to do the things that we expect him to do, thinking that he fits inside the box that I could imagine. I can imagine a big box. In fact, I can imagine an infinite box, and that infinite box cannot contain God. He's bigger than anything I could ever conceive, plus one, right? Just keeps going. We played that game with my mom all the time. The other part that he's reminded of, that Elijah is reminded of, and that I want to be reminded of myself, and that hopefully you're reminded, is that his promises still hold. In his presence and in his continuous working, he is still working out the promises that he made for you and for me. I mean, he showed it off on the cross. He was constantly working for that. And then he confirmed, I will continue to be there. I will continue to have a relationship with you because I have the power to do so, which is why I got up 3 days later and said, hey, here I am, not dead, alive and working and in you and have a presence for you and a desire for you to be restored and renewed in relationship with the Father. That's for every single person in here. And so if you're wondering, what can we take away from this today? What can we do with this stuff? I've got 2 things. Normally I'm a 1-point person because 2 is hard to remember. I'm blonde. But we got 2 today. The first one's easy, and this is one that is probably the hardest to apply, honestly. But you can't go back. You can't go back. We can honor, we can show that the past is amazing and we can learn from it, but we cannot go back to it. Anybody tried Back to the Future? No fans there? Right? 88 miles an hour? Like, I drive that all the time. Not in Oregon, if you're a cop and you're watching. My car has never lit fire tire lines on the ground, and then I've suddenly zoomed back and seen my mom when she was a high schooler. Like, that's never happened for me. You cannot go back. You can only honor the past, learn from it, and move forward. And the second thing I want us all to come in here is that God does not live in the past. He is the God of the past, the present, and the future, but God lives in the promise of renewal, the promise of restoration. He lives in the promise that you will be able to interact with him right where you are. No matter what you did yesterday, what you did 20 minutes ago, what you're going to do an hour from now, you will be able to interact with him, and he will hear you, and he will listen to you, and he will work things towards your good. And all he asks of you in return is that you have faith that he is your Lord. That you have faith that he actually does want the best for you. That you have faith that he actually does have everything in control and has overcome the world, and he demonstrated that on the cross. Nobody else has ever been murdered and brought themselves back to life after saying it would happen. He confirmed his power. He confirmed that for you as evidence that you can trust in Jesus. He's a God of renewal, a God of restoration, and he's doing a unique work in every generation. It's always towards restoration. It's always towards building the family. It's always towards bringing you back to him, bringing you closer, because the thing that we lack is him. We lack him in our lives. There was a gulf, a chasm that was split when we sinned, when we did things against his will, when we decided that we could not trust God in the Garden of Eden. That sowed for time immemorial a broken world. It broke the world. That's why we see disaster. That's why we see discontent. That's why we see depression. That's why we see human beings born in a place of bondage to their sin. And from the beginning, God's work was always restoration of that relationship. Always restoration of that relationship. But in every generation, because we're unique, every single one of us is different. I'm not the same as my parents. My kids are not the same as me. Thank goodness. And so he interacts with me in a unique way that has never been seen in the world before. And he interacted with your parents in a way that was never seen in the world before. And he's going to interact with generations from now that has never been seen in the world before. So why do we consistently look for him to interact with us the same way we've seen before? He has something unique for you. And he wants to meet you right here in this space. And that message is for everybody. And so today we're going to sing one more song. And I invite you guys to stand up and we'll bow our heads in prayer. And I want this to soak in, to sink in. I want us to understand that this is a God who worked miracles of natural disaster, like just huge things going on in life, but also interacted with a woman by the well who was caught in adultery and who just couldn't make ends meet and couldn't even go out during the day to interact with other people because of the shame she felt. And he interacted with her in that spot. From mountaintops to valleys, God is there. And so your feeling of loneliness is a real feeling. But buoy it with the knowledge that God is there. And he's there for you. And he can't wait to interact with you and to have a conversation. says, let's talk. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this opportunity we have to come into this space together to worship you, God, to learn about you, to be able to be given that space where you come into here and you hear us, Lord, because you want to hear us, Lord, and to give us an opportunity to hear you back, Lord. I pray that each person in here is receiving a unique word from you, Lord, or a unique word of encouragement. God, if there's somebody in here who's just down, Lord, that there's just something going on they just can't seem to overcome on their own, if you would show them a path to that, Lord, if you would show them through your will and through your way that there's a path of restoration, reconciliation, Lord, everyone in this room needs you. And so I acknowledge that for myself, God. And I pray that you continue to be with me for the rest of my life and beyond. We love you, Lord. We praise your name.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You are worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Hey, it's holy. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You are worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, yes, we live for you. Sing holy and holy. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me We love you. We have a barbecue for you right now, right after service. Go ahead and take your chair with you. We're going right outside. We're going to eat some awesome food, enjoy some sunshine, and just fellowship with one another. But God bless you.